All right. Thank you. You may be seated. Good afternoon. This is the time set for the 8 p.m. calendar on January 28, 2025. The court's orders for the taking of DNA and fingerprints that were given on the first calendar of this month shall apply to all calendars on this matter. I will go ahead and call each of you one at a time to the podium, and I'll provide a second name to sit in the chair right outside of this room. If I can have Mr. Torres to the podium and Ms. Manuel to the chair. Good evening, sir. Can I get your name and date of birth?
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Clemente H. Torres III.
And your date of birth?
February 10th, 1998, Your Honor.
Thank you so much, sir. And it does look like we have two cases on the calendar. The first one comes in as a new Superior Court case, and it does include one count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, a Class 2 felony, one count of criminal damage, a Class 1 misdemeanor, and one count of disorderly conduct, a Class 1 misdemeanor. Probable cause has been found, and I am going to appoint an attorney to represent you. I'm also going to give you some hearings in the downtown Superior Courthouse. You're going to have a status conference on February 3rd at 8:30 and a preliminary hearing on February 6th at 8:30. You do have a secured appearance bond in the amount of $25,000. That does mean you can use a bail bonding company. If you do post that bond, you have written conditions of release. It includes not returning to the scene of any alleged crime, no contact with any victims, witnesses, or complainants. If picked up for this new offense, that is a term 1 violation of that probation. So I'm going to appoint an attorney in that case and set a probation revocation hearing on February 4th at 8:30. In that case, a $50 bond. So that you will also have written conditions of release in this case, and it will include contacting your probation officer within 72 hours. Date, times, and location of those hearings will be listed in your paperwork. You do have 3 hearings coming up. Did you have any questions?
Do I get in contact with the probation officer within this 72 hours?
Once you're released from custody, then you need within 72 hours.
Okay, gotcha.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, just up to your left, they'll give you your paperwork. Thank you, sir.
There you go.
Ms. Manuel to the podium and Mr. Charles Smith to the chair. Good evening, ma'am. Can I get your name and date of birth?
Shailene Manuel, July 5th, 2005.
Thank you. And it does look like we have one case on the calendar, and it looks like it's coming out of the Yavapai County Superior Court. Looks like a warrant was issued relating to a probation violation. I am going to appoint counsel in that case. Will take place at the hearing at the Yavapai County Superior Court arraignment hearing on January 31st at 8:30. In this case, you have a secured appearance bond of $25,000. If you post that bond, you'll have written conditions of release you'll need to comply with, and it does include contacting your probation officer within 72 hours. Did you have any questions?
Thank
Okay, if you'll step to your left, we'll give you your paperwork. Mr. Smith to the podium and Mr. Amory to the chair. Good evening, sir. Can I get your name and date of birth?
Charles Smith, May 28th, 1997.
Thank you, sir. And it does look like we have one case on the calendar, and it's a grand jury warrant that was issued. It's for an offense date of December 16th, 2024, and it includes one count of criminal damage, a Class 4 felony. I'm going to appoint an attorney to represent you. Arraignment hearing on February 5th at 8:30. You have a secured appearance bond of $10,000. If you post that bond, you have written conditions of release you need to comply with and ensure you attend that hearing to avoid a failure to appear warrant and forfeiture of any bond. Did you have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I wanted to know if I can be released on probation to take care of my pet that doesn't have a guardian with her. If I promise to.
2 other times, correct? Did you ever post those bonds?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So because this is a grand jury warrant, I'm going to affirm the bond, but you already have bonds that we're not here to discuss today, and so I can't change those. So you will remain in custody until the bond on all of your cases are posted. If you do have a pet that you're concerned about and you can't reach family or friends, you can contact animal control and ask them to remove the pet, okay? Do you have any other questions?
That's it.
Okay, if you'll step to your left, they'll give you your paperwork. Mr. Amory to the podium and Mr. Sledge to the chair. Good evening. Can I get your name and date of birth?
Ahmed Amory, July 3rd, 2004, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. And it does look like we have two cases on the calendar. The first one is a grand jury warrant that was issued, and it's for an offense date of May 14th, 2024. It does include one count of unlawful flight from a law enforcement vehicle, a Class 5 felony, one count of driving with a license that was suspended, revoked, or canceled, a Class 1 misdemeanor, and one count of exceeding the posted speed limit by more than 20 miles per hour, a Class 3 misdemeanor. I am going to appoint an attorney to represent you and set an arraignment hearing in the downtown Superior Courthouse on February 5th at 8:30 in the morning. You have a secured appearance bond of $5,000 in this case. It does look like you were also on probation at the time of this offense, and so it is a term 1 violation of your probation. I'm going to appoint an attorney in that case and set a probation revocation hearing on February 4th at 8:30. You have a secured appearance bond of $50 in this case, so it's a total of $5,050. It is secured appearance, meaning you can use a bail bonding company. If you do post the bond, you have written conditions of release. You will need to contact your probation officer within 72 hours from being released from custody, and make sure you attend those hearings in order to avoid a failure to appear warrant. Did you have any questions?
I have a couple of questions. So would I still have to contact my probation officer if I got arrested while my probation officer was there?
So once you're released, yes, because you need to let them know that you have been released from custody.
Okay. And then also, I believe my family posted the $5,000 bond, but they didn't know about the $50 bond. When I called them earlier, they said that we looked up your name and everything. We see a $5,000 bond, but we don't know if that's it. So would I just need to ask them to post that $50 bond too, or?
Officers, can you tell if the bond was posted yet? I don't have access to that. Let's have the officer look to see if that was posted, okay?
Bondsman to post the bond,
Okay.
so
It'll be just one moment while he looks into that,
no
okay?
problem.
Bond has been posted, Your Honor.
It was? No, it was not. Okay. So it's not showing yet.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go ahead and keep the $50 placeholder bond on this case. So they will now need to post a $5,050 bond. So once you get to the back, I would call them and let them know $50 has been added to it. The purpose of setting that $50 is that way if you don't bond out, you will be made available for your hearings and you will get credit for any time served. If I don't put a bond on the second case, then you wouldn't get any of those things. And so
Okay.
it could affect you in the future, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, thank you, sir. If you'll step to your left, they'll give you your paperwork.
Thank you.
Mr. Sledge to the podium and Ms. Pruitt to the chair. Good evening, sir. Can I get your name and date of birth?
Rashid Sledge, August 6, 1979.
Thank you, sir. And it does look like we have one case on the calendar here, and it looks like it's coming out of the Flagstaff Justice Court. Looks like a warrant was issued, and it relates to one count of aggravated assault on an officer and criminal damage. I am going to appoint an attorney to represent you and give you a hearing in the Flagstaff Justice Court for an arraignment hearing on January 31st at 8:30 a.m. You have a secured appearance bond of $10,000. You can use a bail bonding company. If you post that bond, you have written conditions of release you need to comply with, and then you'll need to make sure you get yourself to that Flagstaff hearing on January 31st. Did you have any questions?
No,
Okay, if you step to your left, they'll give you your paperwork, sir. Thank you so much. Ms. Pruitt to the podium and Mr. Cartwright to the chair. Good evening, ma'am. Can I get your name and date of birth?
Amanda Pruitt, and it's 11/20/1992.
Thank you, ma'am. It does look like we have two cases on the calendar, and it looks like they're both failure to appear warrants. Looks like you missed some hearings. I'm going to go ahead and affirm the attorneys that were previously appointed to represent you on these cases, and I'm going to give you a hearing in the first case. It's a non-witness violation hearing on February 4th at 8:30. In this case, you have a secured appearance bond of $250. In the second case, you're going to have, actually, it's going to be the same hearing. It's going to apply to both cases. So February 4th at 8:30 and the same bond amount of $250. So between the two cases, it's a secured appearance bond of $500. If you do post that bond, you will have written conditions of release you need to comply with. You need to ensure you attend that hearing to avoid any future failure to appear warrants and forfeiture of any bond you may post. Did you have any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. If you'll step to your left, they'll give you your paperwork. Mr. Cartwright to the podium and Ms. De La Sierra to the chair. Good evening. Can I get your name and date of birth?
Is Michael Cartwright, 12/19/63.
Thank you, sir. And it does look like we're here on a direct complaint that was filed. And it's for an offense date of October 31st, 2023. It does include one count of possession or use of dangerous drugs, a class 4 felony, and one count of possession or use of drug paraphernalia, a class 6 felony. I'm going to appoint an attorney to represent you and give you some hearings. You're going to have a status conference February 3rd at 8:30 a.m.
Okay.
and a preliminary hearing on February 6th at 8:30 a.m. In this case, you have a secured appearance bond of $250. If you post that bond, you have written conditions of release. Dates, times, and location of those hearings will be in your paperwork. Did you have any questions?
Is it, do I get like an OR or something like that, or?
So you do, in this case, they did set a bond, and I am affirming it. It's $250. If you don't post it, you'll remain in custody until at least your next hearing, which is February 3rd. If you post it, once it's posted, the detention officers will process you out of custody, and then you'll need to make sure you attend those hearings on your own, and the address will be listed in there. It's the Downtown Superior Courthouse on Madison Street.
And there's no, like an OR or anything like that, or? The court would have to, I had charges, I didn't know I had charges, and I guess a letter went to my house, and nobody signed for it, I never got it, and then if I had a warrant out, yeah.
Yeah, so because you did not attend that hearing, that's why they've
I
issued.
never knew about it, because I never got no paperwork in the mail or anything. I
Mhm.
never had nothing. I didn't know anything about it.
And so unfortunately, that's how they move forward with the cases. Once the mail gets returned, then they issue the warrant. In this case, they issued the warrant and set the $250 bond.
And there's no way you can just, can't take the bond out, put OR, I mean, I stay with my son, I live with my son, I'll be here, you know?
Yeah, so the bond will remain. If you haven't posted it and you're still in custody on February 3rd, your attorney at that time can argue for the court to change that.
All right.
If you'll step to your left, they'll give you your paperwork.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Ms. De La Sierra to the podium and Mr. Davis to the chair. Good evening. Could I get your name and date of birth?
Alyssa Paulina de la Sierra, April 16th, 1991.
Thank you, ma'am. And it does look like we're here on a probation violation warrant that was issued for you. And they alleged you violated term 1 of your probation. I'm going to appoint counsel to represent you and set a probation revocation hearing on February 4th at 8:30 a.m. In this case, you do have a secured appearance bond of $100. Are you in the custody of the Arizona Department of Corrections?
I am.
Okay. So if you post the bond, you'll be returned to them. They won't actually release you from custody. So you may not want to post that bond until after you go to that hearing on February 4th. At that time, you may not have the bond anymore, but because you're being held by the Department of Corrections, posting that bond won't get you released outside of custody. It will just return you to the Department of Corrections.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, and when I do go to the revocation sentence, do I get sentenced from there? How does this work?
They could actually finalize it at that hearing. It just depends on the information that they have and need to move forward, but it is set for a revocation hearing and a possible disposition. So that hearing, you could resolve all the issues as it relates to this term 1 violation on that date.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis to the podium and Mr. Ozuna to the chair. Good evening, sir. Could I get your name and date of birth?
Terry Davis, February 11th, 1976.
Thank you, sir. And it does look like we're here on a new justice court case. It looks like we're here on one count of driving with a license that was suspended, revoked, or canceled, a class 1 misdemeanor. Probable cause has been found. Due to the nature of your charges, you're not entitled to court-appointed counsel, but you can hire one at your own expense. Your hearing is going to be in the El Centro Justice Court for an arraignment hearing on February 13th at 8:30 a.m. I am releasing you today on your own recognizance that you promised to appear at that hearing. Your paperwork will include written conditions of release along with the date, time, and location of that hearing. Did you have any questions?
No, ma'am, I just want to thank you, that's all.
Thank you so much.
I
for
was
being-
worried about going to work and a lot of different other things, so.
Yeah, it could take a few hours before they get you processed out of here. It's early in the night, so you should be out before tomorrow morning. And just make sure you keep the paperwork that they give you, so that way you know where to go for that hearing, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Your
you,
Honor.
sir. Mr. Ozuna to the podium and Ms. Chapman to the chair. Good evening. Could I get your name and date of birth?
Español.
Oh, you need an interpreter? Okay. Can I have you take a seat back out there? We'll get an interpreter on the line.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I get Ms. Chapman to the podium? Good evening. Could I get your name and date of birth?
Chelsea Chapman, 12/10/1991.
Thank you, ma'am. It does look like we're here on a probation violation warrant. They've alleged you violated terms 3 and 5 of your probation. I'm going to appoint an attorney to represent you and give you a probation revocation hearing on February 4th at 8:30 a.m. I am going to release you today on your own recognizance that you're promised to appear at that hearing. You do have written conditions of release you need to comply with, and it does include contacting your probation officer within 72 hours from release. And then you'll need to ensure you attend that hearing. Date, time, and location will be listed in your paperwork. Did you have any questions?
So I'm being released today?
Are you being held on anything else?
I don't know. I don't
Okay, for
know.
purposes of this case, I am releasing you. If you have a hold by anybody else, then you'll have to see those judges. But as far as I can tell, you'll have to ask the officers. I don't show anything else, so I am releasing you for the probation violation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. If you'll step to your left, they'll give you the paperwork.
Probation Department, assist victims.
Good evening. Do we have an interpreter on the line?
Hi, yes, this is Mari, interpreter 247-255 for Spanish.
Thank you so much. It looks like we have 3 cases on the calendar. Can we start with Mr. Ozuna to the podium, please?
Bien, si pudiéramos comenzar con el señor Osuna al podio, por favor.
Good evening, sir. Could I get your name and date of birth?
Muy buenas noches, señor. ¿Me permite cuál es su nombre y su fecha de nacimiento?
Jorge Luis Osuna Cancio, el 18 de noviembre del 96.
It's Jorge Luis Osuna Cancio, November 18 of the 96.
Thank you, sir. And it looks like we're here on a justice court warrant.
Muchas gracias, señor. Al parecer estamos aquí por una orden de arresto del Tribunal de Justicia.
You failed to appear for a hearing relating to a reckless driving charge.
Y usted al parecer falló en presentarse ante el tribunal por una acusación por manejo imprudente.
Due to the nature of your charges, you're not entitled to court-appointed counsel.
Y debido a la naturaleza de las ocasiones, usted no tiene el derecho a tener un abogado designado del tribunal.
I'm going to set a hearing on February 12th at 10:30 a.m. in the Agua Fria Justice Court.
Y a usted le voy a estar colocando una audiencia para el 12 de febrero a las 10:30 de la mañana en el Tribunal de Justicia de la ciudad de Aubrey a las 10:30.
I am releasing you today on your own recognizance that you're promised to appear at that hearing.
Estoy liberando el día de hoy bajo su propia palabra que usted se va a presentar a esa audiencia.
Your paperwork will include written conditions of release you need to comply with and make sure you attend that hearing.
La documentación que le vamos a dar para cuando salga integrará lo que son las condiciones para su liberación y también muy importante que se presente a esa fecha en el tribunal.
Did you have any questions?
¿Tiene alguna pregunta?
No, está bien, muchas gracias.
It's okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. If you'll step to your left, they'll give you your paperwork.
El señor parece a la izquierda, le van a dar su documentación.
If we can have Mr. Velazquez to the podium.
Señor Velázquez al podio.
Good evening. Could I get your name and date of birth?
Eric Manuel Castillo Velázquez.
Buenas noches. Nombre y fecha de nacimiento, por favor.
Eric Manuel Castillo Velázquez, agosto 24 de 1982.
Eric Marcos Castillo Velázquez, August 24th of 1982.
Thank you, sir. And it does look like we have 3 cases on the calendar here.
Ese señor, al parecer tenemos 3 casos en el calendario el día de hoy.
Okay.
The first one is a failure to appear warrant that was issued.
La primera es por una orden de arresto por haber fallado en presentarse, el cual se le emitió.
I'm going to affirm the attorney that was previously appointed to represent you.
Debe dirigir al abogado que ya se le había designado anteriormente para que la representara.
The second case is a direct complaint with an offense date of November 6, 2016.
Y la segunda es una demanda directa del 6 de noviembre del 2016.
And it includes 2 counts of aggravated DUI, a class 4 felony.
Lo cual incluye 2 acusaciones, uno por manejo bajo las influencias agravado, que es un delito mayor de clase 4.
The third case on the calendar is a direct complaint with an offense date of April 18th, 2020.
Y el tercer caso que tenemos en el calendario es por una demanda directa del 18 de abril del 2020.
It includes 2 counts of aggravated DUI, a class 4 felony.
Incluye 2 acusaciones de manejo bajo las influencias agravado, que es un delito mayor de clase 4.
1 count of aggravated DUI with a passenger under the age 15, a class 6 felony.
Y también una acusación por manejo bajo las influencias teniendo un pasajero menor a la edad de 15 años, el cual es un delito mayor de clase 6.
And 1 count of aggravated DUI with a BAC over .08, a class 6 felony.
Y también una acusación por manejo bajo las influencias con un BAC arriba del .08, que es un delito mayor de clase 6.
I'm going to appoint an attorney to represent you on the 2 direct complaints that have been filed.
Le voy a designar un abogado para que le representen todas esas 2 acusaciones directas que han presentado.
I'm going to give you a couple of hearings in the downtown Superior Courthouse, and it will apply to all 3 of your cases.
Y le voy a dar un par de audiencias que va a ser en el Tribunal de Juzgados de el Square Downtown, la cual aplicará para los 3 casos.
You have a status conference on February 3rd at 8:30 a.m.
Tiene una conferencia de estatus el 3 de febrero a las 8:30 de la mañana.
A preliminary hearing on February 6th at 8:30 in the morning.
Una audiencia preliminar el 6 de febrero a las 8:30 de la mañana.
In one case, you have a secured appearance bond of $300.
En uno de los casos tiene una fianza asegurada para presentarse de $300.
In the second case, you have a secured appearance bond of $2,500.
Asegurada para presentarse de $2,500.
And in the third case, you have a secured appearance bond of $4,500.
Y en la tercera acusación, pues tiene una fianza asegurada para presentarse por $4,500.
That's a total secured appearance bond of $7,300.
Ese es un total de fianza asegurada para presentarse de $7,300.
If you post bond, you will be released to pretrial services.
Si es que usted paga la fianza, será liberado bajo servicios previos al juicio.
And that will include alcohol testing and monitoring.
Y eso va a incluir monitoreo y pruebas de alcohol.
And you will also have written conditions of release that you will need to comply with.
Y también va a tener condiciones por escrito, las cuales va a tener que cumplir.
All of that information will be listed in your paperwork. Did you have any questions, sir?
Toda esa información va a venir registrada en la documentación. ¿Tiene alguna pregunta, señor?
Sí, lo que pasa es que cuando me pararon, me agarró ICE y me sacaron y por eso no pude arreglar nada. No sé si fue en el segundo o en el tercero.
Yes, what happened is just when I was stopped, like my air was taken out, so that's why I was not able to fix anything. So I don't know if it was on the second or the third.
Can you clarify what the question is, sir?
¿Puede clarificar cuál es su pregunta, señor?
Que si voy a tener mucho problema porque no pude arreglar el caso porque me sacó ICE. Fue cuando estaba el COVID.
Like if I'm going to have a lot of problems because I was not able to fix the case because I was taken MRIs and when it was the COVID.
Y me mandaron para México.
I was sent back to Mexico.
So for purposes of today's,
Para los propósitos de la audiencia del día de hoy, no le estamos determinando culpable y tiene derecho a tener un juicio.
you're going to have an attorney representing you on each of these cases so you can provide any information as it relates to the defense of these charges to that attorney.
Se le está designando un abogado para que le represente en cada uno de los casos, así que por favor proporcióneles la información a ellos relacionada para la defensa de estas acusaciones en todos esos casos a ellos.
If you'll step to your left, they'll hand you the paperwork.
Una más. Tengo una pregunta más.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Si pago la fianza, ¿me van a poder soltar o me va a retener ahí?
Okay.
Officers, do you know if there's an ICE hold on this case?
Yes, there is.
According to the officers, there is a hold by ICE. So if you do post bond, ICE will likely take custody of you.
Ok, está bien, es todo.
Sí, de acuerdo a los oficiales, tiene una retención por ICE, así que si paga la fianza, entonces sí, lo más probable es de que ICE venga a recogerle.
Ok, está bien, porque fue lo que pasó lo mismo la vez pasada. Iba a pagar la fianza, pero ya me tenía ahí y no pude arreglar nada. Pero muchas gracias.
Okay, all right, that's what happened last time because I was last time like I was going to pay a bond and I was holded by ICE, but thank you very much. I was not able to fix anything, but thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Gracias, señor.
If we could have Mr. Miranda Salazar to the podium.
Señor Miranda Salazar al podio.
Good evening. Can I get the date of birth?
David, Miranda,
March 25th of the 96.
And can you repeat your name, sir?
David Humberto Miranda Salazar.
David Humberto Miranda Salazar.
Thank you. And it does look like we're here on a new justice court case.
Gracias. Al parecer estamos aquí por un caso ante el Tribunal de Justicia nuevo.
for one count of exceeding the posted speed limit by more than 20 miles per hour.
Por una cuestión, el límite de velocidad fijado más de 20 millas por hora.
Sí.
Due to the nature of your charges, you're not entitled to court-appointed counsel.
Debido a la naturaleza de las acusaciones, no tiene derecho a recibir un abogado designado del tribunal.
You'll have an arraignment hearing in the North Mesa Justice Court on February 13th at 1 p.m.
Usted va a tener una lectura de sus acusaciones en el tribunal de North Mesa el 13 de febrero a la 1 p.m.
I am going to release you today on your own recognizance. That's your promise to appear at that hearing.
Le voy a liberar bajo su propia palabra, que el cual es la promesa de que usted se va a presentar a esa audiencia.
Ajá.
You will have written conditions of release you need to comply with and make sure you attend that hearing.
Va a tener usted condiciones de liberación por escrito, las cuales tiene que asegurarse de cumplir, incluyendo la de presentarse ante el tribunal.
Did you have any questions?
No, no tengo preguntas.
Have a very nice evening, Your Honor. Goodbye.
Thank you. Case number 1, Suzette Soto, date of birth, February 8th, 1999. Will proceed as a house call directly after this recording. We are here on a direct complaint that was filed for one count of taking identity of another, a Class 4 felony, one count of narcotic drug possession, a Class 4 felony, and one count of drug paraphernalia possession, a Class 6 felony. Looks like the offense date is August 13th, 2022. I was going to release Ms. Soto, but is she being held by the Department of Corrections?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to edit these and place a $50 placeholder bond on this case. She's going to have a status conference on February 3rd at 8:30 in the morning and a preliminary hearing on February 6th at 8:30 in the morning. If bond is posted, she has written conditions of release. However, if the bond is posted, it does appear that the Department of Corrections has a hold on her and she will return to the Department of Correction upon completion of this case. If anything changes after I meet with her, I will update the written record. Case number 19, Cody Tolsdorf, date of birth, January 14th, 1994. We have been informed that he is still unable to appear due to a medical condition. I am finding extraordinary circumstances to continue this case until the next calendar, which is at 11 p.m. today. We will now stand in recess until the 11 p.m. calendar.